Hey guys, welcome back to TTMR. We're back with me and Sean, and today we will be reviewing the newest entry into the DCEU, The Flash, directed by Andy Muschietti, the same man who brought you some movies such as It Chapters 1 and 2.
In the Flash movie, we follow Barry Allen as he accidentally stumbles upon the ability to time travel, which causes him to want to fix the past by making it so that his mom never died and his dad was never put in a long and arduous legal battle over it. Ignoring Batman's warnings of tampering with the past, Barry travels back in time and tries to indirectly allow his mom to live in the present. However, as Batman foretold at the start of the film, this tampering with the past would cause reality to begin to collapse and merge other universes together, forcing Barry to undo his changes and move on from his mother's unfortunate death.
Honestly, I went into this movie with extremely low expectations, but I left the theater shocked and pleasantly surprised. This movie had a lot going for it, and it delivered in many aspects, but that's not without its flaws too. Like almost any film, The Flash had its issues. The major issue that I found was the CGI. Now, I don't want to be that guy who hates a movie just because of something like the visuals, but this movie definitely had its questionable scenes. The scenes in the Speed Force were probably the biggest offenders, but that's no reason not to watch or even to hate this movie. However, one reason you should watch this movie is for the dynamic between Barry and Bruce, both Ben Affleck and Michael Keaton's versions. As of recent, I've watched a lot of the DCEU movies for the first time, and personally, I feel that Ben Affleck is a great actor, but he's been given such poor scripts to work with, and I can see that he tries as hard as he can with what he's been given. This is very noticeable in this film, but that's just my opinion. Both versions of Bruce Wayne almost act like a father figure to Barry in this film. This dynamic makes you feel much more strongly towards both the versions of Batman, and this gives the movie way more life as you can emotionally connect to both Batman and Barry.
What I thought to be the best part of this film personally was the parts of the story that highly focus on Barry's ability to time travel and his changing of the past. When Barry initially changes the past by putting the tomato sauce in the car, it is a sad but optimistic moment that would hopefully result in the fixing of his mother's unfortunate demise. This is especially tear-jerking when compared to the climax in the movie where Barry has to then go back to this scene and come face to face with his mother in the store, breaking down in front of her as he knows what he needs to do. When he takes the tomato sauce back out of the car, the audience can really get a feel as to how Barry is feeling at that moment, and why this is so difficult for him to do, which is why it worked so well as the conclusion. The inclusion of the other Barry also played with some fun concepts. The discussion between the two of them was kept interesting, and even though it was technically the same actor talking to himself, it eventually felt like two completely different people having a genuine conversation. The scene where Barry yells at his other self by saying how lucky he is and how he doesn't appreciate having his mom in his life since he had his taken away from him is a great scene that separates these two characters.
Speaking of the interactions between Bruce and Barry, I want to talk about the interactions between past and current Barry. Seeing how Barry tries so hard to mentor his younger self is a very cool dynamic that they explored, and I feel like they did it extremely well. Seeing how our Barry reacts and responds to his younger self is written and acted out beautifully in my opinion. Barry yelling at his younger self for not appreciating what he has was such a strong scene that was really able to touch my heart. And the same goes for when past Barry is screaming at our Barry because he has now become the Flash and he now thinks that he can save anyone and there won't be any consequences. The action sequences in this movie were absolutely phenomenal. The whole trip to Moscow and seeing both Barrys fight alongside Michael Keaton's Batman was absolutely awesome. And seeing how they introduced us to Kara Zor-El was also an incredible scene. Kara was one of my favorite parts of this movie, and I feel like Sasha Calle did an amazing job in the role, and I pray that she returns for the role in James Gunn's new DCU. One more big thing that was on my mind was seeing George Clooney's return to the role of Batman. This was a very strange decision on the writer's part, as he will most likely be replaced in a matter of months when they cast Batman for James Gunn's The Brave and the Bold. I've never seen any of his Batman movies, but from what I know, people weren't too fond of him in the role, so who knows how he will be if he actually keeps the part.
I really loved how the other Barry became extremely hellbent on trying to fix everything with his extreme power to the point where he came in direct contrast with our main Flash. With the reveal that the other Barry would become the unknown figure Barry saw initially when time traveling, it made a lot of sense as to why that evil Flash would have allowed Barry to continue time traveling until he had been created. However, while this future character was cool, It's hard to ignore that he felt pretty underdeveloped due to having almost zero screen time up until the reveal, so it didn't really feel as impactful as it potentially could have. In fact, even when this reveal happens, this future Barry doesn't even really do that much other than ultimately get rid of the other Barry. This character did have some good ideas surrounding it though, as this also worked as a warning as to what the Flash as a character would have become if he tried to abuse his power to reshape the universe in his image, effectively working as a symbol of our main Barry's initial selfishness to save his mom instead of prioritizing the possible much greater consequences. The scene where this Barry yelled that he is the Flash showed that this Barry thought of himself as higher than his older alternate self because he was the only one willing to abuse his power to benefit himself. This Barry deciding to sacrifice himself to stop his much more extreme future self to save our Barry shows the riddance of the selfishness in the character, as the only version of him still clinging on to fixing the past was effectively destroyed, pushing Barry to correct his mistake of tampering with the past at all.
Although I usually dive into some of the highlights of movies in this section, I found that this movie really was not as good as I thought in hindsight, so I've dedicated this section to absolutely ripping into this film. This movie, quite honestly, is ridiculous. Younger Barry going power hungry makes absolutely no sense. They only did this so they could say, "Hey, everyone look! It was me, Barry!" Oh, wait, no, because it actually wasn't. The choice to make the villain an alternate Barry is mind-numbingly stupid. Thawne was right there. You could have even casted Tom Cavanaugh. And speaking of actors from a better Flash production, why make Ezra play two versions of Barry? Like, I know they deepfaked him onto a double, but Grant Gustin was a phone call away, guys.
Both Max and I really enjoyed our watch of this movie, but there were definitely issues that knocked its rating down slightly. Both Max and I rated this film with an 8.5 out of 10, giving us our overall score for the movie being an 85%, which is a fitting score for this film because it highlights some of the genuinely great parts of this film, such as the good for the most part writing and good portrayals of the Batman and Kara, while still showing that this film isn't perfect as a whole.
Now that we have established our thoughts, what would we recommend? Well, first, let me clarify, I do not rate this movie at an 8.5. This movie is a 7 at best. My thoughts have changed significantly since we watched it. If you haven't seen this film already, I wouldn't necessarily recommend it. But even though my thoughts have changed in some ways, there are still good attributes to this film. The fights are good, the fight choreography was really nice, the acting was solid, and all the suits looked really good in my opinion. In all honesty, if you want to watch this movie, you can expect cool superhero fights and sacrifices, a surprisingly nice soundtrack, and throwbacks to classic DC films.
So with that being said, that has been a review of The Flash. Remember that this is just our opinion, so you don't necessarily have to believe everything that is said here. Come back soon for more reviews or browse existing ones on the channel.
Make sure to check out our Twitter for sneak peeks and updates on our future projects. We hope you all have an amazing rest of your day, and if you enjoyed, you could like or subscribe to help us out. Thank you guys so much for watching, and have a great day.